this is the general agenda. The treasurer's report, I don't know that we have an update. I know we don't have an update. Gary's going to talk a little bit about the Neighborhoods Commission. I've got a few things I want to mention. We'll have an update from Vice Mayor Jones. I don't know if State Senator Cortese is going to join us or not. Jerry and he had been exchanging messages, but in the end, I'm not certain that they confirmed things. And then the two discussion topics, Sujata is here to talk about her ideas for light. And then, of course, the main thing is opportunity housing. And Michael Brule, I hope I said your name right, Michael. He's here from planning. Oh, and we've got 3 people to enter the room here. And I'm just letting Jenny, Elizabeth, and someone else, I forgot who it was now, join. So we have a couple more people joining. So with that, the minutes to the meeting are in the chat menu. And Steve, I don't know if you want to say anything about the minutes to the last meeting, but I put the link to them in the chat. Are you there, Steve? Did we lose Steve? I'm not seeing him on the list. Huh. Yeah, this is unfortunate. You know, when you're physically there that you can actually see the person, but anyone else see him?
No, he dropped off.
Huh. Okay, well, we'll come back to the minutes. I am recording the meeting, by the way. I guess that was obvious. So let's, treasurer's report. I don't expect much has changed. At the end of the last meeting, we had about $4,300 in the bank account. And I assume that's pretty much the same. I got a text from Steve. Sorry, I just let me. Oh, okay, he's having a problem with the computer he uses for Zoom. He'll be back soon. Yeah, so I don't think there's much to say about this because this is the same slide from last time. A couple things coming up, and I probably could do this as a poll if I, whoops, wait a second, sorry. Picnic in July. What's the general consensus? I guess, you know, I think the state will be opened up by that time. I mean, I'm thinking we could actually have a real get together in person. Anyone have any strong thoughts on that one way or the other?
Yeah, I think that would be good, especially if we can do it outside, you know, have meeting, you know, picnic kind of meeting outside, open air. I think everybody be probably amenable to that.
It'd be nice to actually see people in person.
I agree.
Okay.
I want to see everybody in person.
Okay, so we'll have to figure out venue. Anyone wanting to help with that, we can take that offline, but just, you know, email D1 Leadership Group at whatever it is, or Gmail or whatever, D1 Leadership Group at gmail.com.
So do we need to require that people are double vaccinated? I mean, what's the deal with the state now requirements?
Well, I think we can work in those details. What we probably should do, you know, a group of us should probably kind of figure out what we want to do, and those will be the rules and stuff that we have to adhere to, and we do all that stuff offline. But I think you're right. We have to abide by whatever the rules are.
I don't think we're going to do a neighborhood picnic, but I haven't decided yet. So
At Murdoch Park.
Yeah.
And then again, just a reminder, several of us will be terming out, and the nominations are in November, elections are in January. One other, whoops, I have to get the right computer going here. One other thing, on Thursday, I believe it was, of last week, there were several of us, I think, that were on the Department of Transportation's, I know Vice Mayor Jones was, the Mobility Transportation Improvement Plan, I think, and we heard from them at our last D1 Leadership Group meeting. This time they went into a little bit more detail, and then they followed up with an email on Thursday or Friday to me, and I assume everyone else who was in the meeting, basically, they're trying to do more outreach now to all the neighborhood associations in D1. So this is the contact of the information if you want to have the DOT speak about the plan. The URL is down here at the bottom of the slide. And, you know, it's a pretty aggressive transition that they're trying to take from single occupancy cars to more active and shared transportation. They're going from 24% to 88% of the trip. So she encouraged people to reach out to her to have them speak at your neighborhood associations. Whoops. And with that, I will turn it over to Oh, before I do that, Steve Ling, you're back, right?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, so excuse me. So we talked briefly about the minutes. I had mentioned that I'd put them in the chat menu so people could review them. Do you want to kind of vote on those now, or what do you want to do?
We can give people time to look at them if they want.
And we could always do this at the end of the meeting. That's
We just have to remember.
okay.
And by the way, my goal is to do the minutes and get them out within a couple days. And I had these done and they sat on my computer. I forgot to send them. So my apologies, guys. I'll try to get these out more promptly.
I'm not seeing it in the chat.
Oh, it was earlier in the chat. Let me copy and paste it again. How about now?
There it is.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Vice Mayor Jones in his office. Now, do you have any slides? Well, if you want to have slides to share, I should be able to allow you to.
No, but I was going to ask you to put the picture that you had of me back up.
Sure.
That's actually my favorite picture.
Oh,
I was
I can do that if you want.
Yeah, sure. Ken, don't take that down. I think that's the only good picture I've ever taken.
I don't know about that.
Anyway. So first of all, I just want to say that it's, such a joy to see, all the faces here, but I really want to see you in person. And things are opening up and, we can get together. We can meet outdoors. I had a little neighborhood meeting last week with some neighbors, and we just met on a corner and we had talked about and went through some of the issues that they were having. And so let's get together. Let's, meet face to face. Hopefully everybody's been double vaccinated, and I have, and I'm ready to get back out into the real world. Want to start out by introducing our new police captain. Public safety and issues around policing and some of the quality of life issues, come up all the time in our community. And we've been fortunate to have some really strong, great police captains. And the good news is that we've had these really great police captains. The bad news is they cycle through, they do their rotations and then they go on to other things. But there's been a tradition of really successful, dedicated, committed captains. So I'm going to introduce Captain Shab. And Captain, I just want you to know that you have some big shoes to fill, but we know that you're going to do an outstanding job. So I want you just to kind of introduce yourself, kind of share your vision of coming into this role, and then we'll do a couple, answer a few questions, and then I'll move on to the rest of my presentation. So
absolutely, and thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I appreciate the introduction, and you're absolutely right. I feel kind of like a 6-year-old little boy trying to slip on my dad's giant loafers and pretend like I'm him sometimes. Assistant Chief Joseph has been one of my mentors in my career, and I'm honored to kind of follow in his footsteps in Western. I know he was doing some great things here in Western, and Chief Randall before him, and Chief Troy before her. So thank you again. Thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Brian Shab, and I've been on the police department for about 22 years. I feel very fortunate that I have the opportunity to truly chase my life's passion, my life's work. I've wanted to be a police officer since I was a little boy, and I just never outgrew it. And I love the job. Even in today's climate, I love the job. It's an important job. I believe that in my heart. And the biggest focus in my new job is building community relations. My goal has never been stronger than it is right now, to build that trust with the community, because I think it's been damaged. And it's been damaged not because of anything that we've done here locally, but nonetheless, it's work that we need to do, and I'm committed to doing it. I'll give you a little quick background about me. I'm a San Jose native, born and raised. I was born in the old San Jose hospital there on Santa Clara Street. I was raised by some working parents over on the east side in some challenging neighborhoods. And so I've seen a lot of the different aspects of the city of San Jose, and I love San Jose. It's my home. It's where my heart is. I got hired back in 1998, and I had the wonderful opportunity to work some very challenging but very rewarding assignments. I worked as an officer in our metro unit, which is kind of like our street crimes, street level narcotics unit. And just had a blast doing that work. Really cut my teeth on police work there. I spent about 10 years in special operations in our SWAT team, which is what we call Merge. I worked there as an officer, a team leader, and then ultimately as a sergeant. I was promoted to lieutenant, and I worked gang investigations and homicide. And I was just recently promoted to captain, and Western is my first assignment in my division. And I feel honored that Chief Joseph chose me personally to take over Western in his footsteps, because I know that says a lot for me, because Western is where his heart is. He made a lot of relationships. He continues to have those relationships. And I know how important Western Division is to him. So I don't take it lightly that he chose me to continue his work. And that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Captain Shab. So we'll take a couple of questions, and then we'll let the captain get back to keeping us safe and protected.
There's got to be one question. Come on.
Well, first, thank you for your service to the city of San Jose, and for staying in your hometown and that sort of thing. And that's great.
Thank you.
What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the police force or in District 1?
Well, I would say, internally, the biggest challenge in police force is community trust and relationships, right? Like I mentioned earlier, there's been some significant, damage done to law enforcement across the country from recent events. And while none of that, like I said, none of that stemmed from anything that happened here in San Jose, we have the best police department in the nation. We really do. You probably hear that all the time, but I've worked with officers from all over the country, and I've been to conferences all over the country. We have the best police department in the country, but we still need to work on those relationships, because unfortunately the profession is painted with a broad brush. And so when something bad happens on the other side of the country, we feel the effects here. And so internally, that's what we need to focus on. I would say externally, within the city of San Jose, probably our biggest number one crisis right now is homelessness. And that's not necessarily a police problem. I mean, that's a community, it's a society problem. And I'm not quite sure, to be honest, how the police are going to fall into the solution in that problem. But I know we all need to be at the table to fix it. Maybe more on a more of a micro level, in D1, you know, in areas like Cadillac and Winchester, we still struggle with gang activity. You know, in my time in both gang investigations and in homicide, you know, I spent a great deal of time out there. You know, I remember Cadillac and Winchester when I was a boy. My grandpa lived on Impala, and I'd go visit him when I was a little boy there. And so I've seen that neighborhood, you know, from, you know, for the last 40 years, 50 years, or 40 years rather. So I know the struggles that's having right now. The good news is it is probably, and I was talking about this just the other day at the neighborhood meeting. It's probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, neighborhood associations in San Jose, and that's due in large part to the leadership of you folks here today. I mean, the community there at Cadillac and Winchester, while they have their problems, they know how to organize, they know how to get resources, they know how to get problems solved. So it really is a model for the rest of the city.
Yeah, I just want to add on to, as everyone knows, the police officers have a really tough job. And as a society, we've asked them to take on more and more responsibilities, particularly around homelessness, mental health. So if someone has a mental health crisis, the response has been to have the police go and deal with it. And that might not be the best use of resources, as well as the most effective use of resources. You know, if someone's having a mental health crisis, maybe having a mental health specialist, you know, interact with them, or, you know, some other resource. But so we're going through a whole reimagining process in terms of how situations are addressed or resolved, and whether you use police officers to do that or if you use other resources. So the city is undergoing that process right now, and any input and insights that the community has or that you have individually, we definitely would want to hear that, because again, we're asking our police officers to take on way too much and deal with issues that they're not equipped to handle.
And if I could add on to that just really quick, Vice Mayor, I agree wholeheartedly. And one of the things that we're already doing in the police department is we're trying to find ways where we can kind of foster that transition, but not, you know, overly abruptly. So you may or may not have heard about the department's new mobile crisis response team, where we have officers that are now partnering with mental health clinicians, and the officers are there to kind of facilitate a safe environment for the clinicians to do their very important work and get resources to the people that are in crisis the best way possible. And I think the model, a little bit biased, but I think the model is working. I think it's a great model to get that transition started. And I think you'll likely see that become a model nationwide.
I see Amy, go ahead.
Captain Shab, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
Amy Cody with the Moreland West Neighborhood Association. We really value our relationship with the crime prevention specialist from SJPD, and also it's just super valuable to have an officer and lately community policing officer spend 10-15 minutes with us at our neighborhood association meetings. So thank you. Could you put your email in the chat? And
absolutely,
we're going to be reaching out soon because we have a meeting coming up. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. I have
just one kind of silly question, but it also speaks to the idea of community policing. So there is a very cool little miniature electric vehicle at Santana Row that says San Jose Police on it. Is that true? Who owns that? Is that the police, or is it Santana Row? It's kind of a cool little patrol vehicle.
I'm not 100% familiar with it. I'll look into it. But if I was a betting man, I would say that it was probably purchased by Santana Row and branded by the department. If I was a betting man, I'd say it was probably a joint venture, but I don't know that it's necessarily one of ours, but it might be.
It's really friendly looking, that's all.
Oh, good deal.
Yeah.
I tried to put my hand up, so I'm just going to jump in.
Go ahead, Doris.
We don't see a lot of police presence way far over here on the west side of Lawrence, and we've got car stolen, catalytic converters stolen, homes being broken into. I mean, I know it's too fast happening for police to respond to, but is there any way that you're going to have any extra officers to do any patrolling around, just so people think there's police over here right now? They think that we have none.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Doris. I unfortunately, I don't know that we have any new officers coming in. We're trying our best to keep up with attrition. We have, some retirements that are coming. So every academy is almost filling 100% the vacancies that we're seeing through retirement. But that being said, I'll absolutely do my best to try and get some officers out there to do patrols. It's tough because as they drive by very quickly. So the chances of you actually seeing them are probably fairly low. But what I'll do is I'll pull the numbers and see kind of how much time is being spent out there. If you could drop in your neighborhood association, your neighborhood area in the chat, I'll look into it and then I'll get back to you. And in the meantime, what I would say is we need everyone's eyes and everyone's help. When you see something suspicious, please don't hesitate to call. I know sometimes it can be very difficult, especially if you're calling 311 and you're sitting on hold, for a long period of time waiting for the officer, and you may or may not actually see the officer respond out there. But we still really need those phone calls, because a lot of times those phone calls, the more phone calls we get, the more the district sergeant will realize, okay, we do need to get some officers out there. And then just kind of so you have an understanding of the way calls are managed in the neighborhoods is every area has a patrol sergeant that oversees the supervision of that area. And it's that patrol sergeant's job to kind of to look at all of the calls that are pending, because typically speaking, there's always calls pending. It's very rare that, we'll get a phone call and there'll be an available officer right then, that moment, that can immediately be
Yeah, I
dispatched
don't expect
to it. But that sergeant,
people. Thank you.
sure, for sure.
Sorry.
Thank you, Captain. He put his email in the chat, so feel free to reach out to him, and we're excited to have you, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. So for those who missed an earlier conversation, I got an e-bike, so I've been riding it around the district. So if you see me pedaling through your neighborhood or on your street on my e-bike, give me a shout out, wave at me, let me know, that you see me. And one of the things about riding your bike or walking through the district is it really is an opportunity to really see things that you might not see if you're just driving through. So things like illegal dumping and encampments that you really can see, just how impactful that is on a neighborhood or a street or a community. So I knew that those problems were there all along, obviously, but there's just something about actually being there, having them in your face to bring it home. So I know that there's still a lot of concerns from the community about some of the homeless encampments. And as we talked about in previous meetings, that the city shifted resources to the pandemic response. And part of that was to put a pause on encampment abatements, because we want to follow the state guidelines in terms of not making the spread of the virus worse. And one of the things that they determined was that if we abate those encampments or disperse that community, that it would have a greater likelihood of furthering the spread of the virus. So we're starting to move out of that phase, but we still have a commitment to try to do what we can to support those encampments in terms of cleanliness, in terms of providing sanitary resources. But that's for this initial phase. But then we're going to start to move to trying to abate those encampments, get those homeless individuals into resources like shelters, hotels, permanent supportive housing, but it's going to take some time, and it's a process and a transition. So I just want to just set everyone's expectations in terms of, how quickly we're going to be able to abate these encampments. As far as illegal dumping is concerned, particularly on Moore Park along the freeway, I actually rode by a site a week ago where literally it was just people were dumping, mattresses and other large items in this one particular location along Moore Park. So the community actually reached out to us around that same time. We got my staff involved, and we're working with the city's Beautify SJ team to get that particular site cleared up, as well as all the other sites that pop up in the district. So I want to ask everybody to be a little patient, but notify us if there's an issue around illegal dumping or encampments, and we will act on it as quickly as possible. But I just want to set expectations. Another topic that I want to bring up is rate increases. I don't know how many of you read the article in the Mercury News just today, but they talked about a rate increase for electricity rates that we just approved this past Tuesday. They're going to increase your electricity rates through San Jose Clean Energy by 8%. That's the bad news. The good news is that we created different programs. So we have a program that's available that if you want to opt into it, that you can have a 30% discount over what PG&E is charging. But the downside to that is it's not renewable. The renewable mix, energy mix in that plan, that lower cost plan, is not as robust as our other plans, and not as green, and doesn't utilize as much renewable energy. We also have, we're having a vote and a discussion on potentially raising garbage rates up to 17% for single family homes and 7% for multi-unit properties. So an example would be for a 32-gallon garbage cart, that can mean an increase of $6.65 per month. In addition to that, Santa Clara Valley Water passed a 9.1% increase in water rates that's going to go into effect sometime in June or July. Wow. So you can really get a feel of the magnitude of all the different rate increases that are coming through. And this is absolutely the worst time to increase rates on our residents for anything, whether it's electricity, water, garbage. It's just not a good time. So we've been challenging staff on our end in terms of coming up with strategies to reduce that increase. And they've been actively engaged in that for a while, and to the point where we've actually tapped into some of our reserves to mitigate some of the increases. But that's the strategy that you can only do for so long, because then you exhaust all your reserves. And we need to have those reserves for situations where we don't have enough revenue to cover our expenses. And so you need to have those reserves. And so now we're in a situation where we have to make some really tough choices and decisions. And I just want to make this group aware of it, so that one, when we have those council discussions, that you can participate and provide your input, but two, just have a deeper understanding of some of the drivers behind some of these increases. And those were the two main areas that I wanted to cover in this meeting. But I'm open to questions. I know that Ken, we only have a limited amount of time, but I definitely want to hear some questions from you, and what we can't answer right now, we can definitely follow up with you. Go ahead, Amy.
About the rate increases, I just wanted to say it's been really helpful that your office has been able to at least help to explain what's behind some of the rate increases. I know one of our residents was pretty outraged, I think, by the garbage increase in particular. And I think Annalee responded to him, but also in your newsletter, there's a nice explanation of some of the reasons behind it. So that's something that I could direct our community to if they have questions about that. And is that 9.1%? Is that a Valley Water increase, or is that the San Jose Water Company?
That's Valley Water. But
So
with San Jose Water, actually, part of their increase is driven by Valley Water's increase, because they buy their water from Valley Water. So there's a direct correlation between the increases from Valley Water and San Jose Water.
so it's going to be higher than that, right?
I don't have San Jose Water's increase number in front of me, but
Yes, I think it's going to be higher next year because the increase for SJ Water is for San Jose Water is, I think, also because of a capital project that they're going to be doing. So next year it will probably be higher.
and also the other interesting thing too is that Valley Water is undertaking a multi-billion-dollar project that the mayor has actually come out against because he doesn't feel it's necessary. And part of that increase incorporates that multi-billion-dollar water project that they're undertaking. And the other thing I left out too is that 9.1 increase is year over year. So it's not just a one-time increase. So effectively in about 8 years, it can double. Any other?
So I did have a question. I'm sorry, I can't find where to raise my hand. I'm not a Zoom person.
No worries.
Is there some common trend? Excuse me. Is there a common trend behind these increases? Is this like, declining infrastructure is driving these? I'm just curious why all of these at the same time.
Okay, so each situation is unique. So I'll just go through each one really quickly. So for San Jose Clean Energy, we have targeted our charges to be about 1% below PG&E. But what PG&E has done is they're charging us a additional fee for our customers leaving their system. So PG&E historically has made some relatively bad decisions in terms of their power purchases, energy purchases. And what they did is they went to the CPUC and said, even though we've made some bad decisions, we want customers who are leaving us to pay for those bad decisions. So they have a fee, it's called a PCIA fee that's tacked on to our charges. And that fee has gone up like 900%. And so we're in a situation now where we've absorbed part of that fee through our reserves, but we're lowering our reserves to the level where we can no longer do that. For Valley Water is doing some major water projects like Anderson Dam, Pacheco Reservoir, and a couple of other projects that they want to pass along those costs. And that's why I mentioned that the mayor has some issues with some of their projects in the necessity in the value those projects are going to add. And so, and then for the garbage rates, that was another situation where we've had increasing cost, but we've been trying to keep those costs down, which meant tapping into our reserves and other sources. But we can no longer do that because, again, if you get your reserves to the point where you can't, cover your operating costs, then that's not a sustainable strategy.
Okay, thanks.
Ken?
What was the number you used for the, it was the MDUs going up, it was like 7% and 17% for single families? Was that the number I heard?
So for
garbage specifically, yeah, sorry.
So 17% for single family homes and 7% for multi-unit properties or apartments.
I was just thinking if I could share my garbage with my neighbor, that would help. But it's linear though, I noticed too. So if I double the size of my can, there would be no advantage to that anyhow. But it does raise the question, like on my street, I noticed the garbage truck goes up and then it comes back. And I keep thinking, if we all put our garbage cans on one side of the street, that would have to reduce the operational cost just by a little bit. But we could all kind of do our share. But anyway.
What would actually be more helpful, Ken, is that if everybody actually properly sorted their recyclables and garbage, that would go a long way. One of the reasons why the charges and fees are going up is people are just dumping garbage into their recycle bins. And then when it gets to the processing center, they have to literally just, everything's so contaminated that you just have to throw everything into the landfill, which is driving up the costs of just hauling and managing waste and recycles and garbage. So that would go a long way if people just, stop putting their pizza box in the recycle bin. So anyway, Bob?
Yeah, thanks, Chappie. Could you give us a quick update on the major development projects in the district?
Sure. I'm going to actually ask Cassidy to run through them real quick, since she's my point person on anything development.
Okay, and a quick update on the water district. That 9% could go on for 10 to 14 years sequentially.
Yes.
So it could go up well over 100% in your increase in 10 years, because like you're saying, the Pacheco project and the Anderson retrofit and some, other recycled water projects, the capital projects they have.
Sure, Bob, did you have a question about a specific development project?
No, I just wanted to run through them. I mean, where are we with, El Paseo, for example?
Yeah, El Paseo, so they are going through some EIR process right now. So we'll let you know when we have an update on that, but the latest we have is just that the school option has been taken off the table. So same update as a couple months ago.
Yeah, the same with what was previously the Fort Bay property.
Yeah, and the Fort Bay property, so I think they should actually be circling their EIR within the next couple months as well, but they resubmitted a couple months back. And it's just a slightly different project than was there before. They have a hotel instead of some commercial space. So,
okay, anything new on the corner of Saratoga and Stevens Creek?
Saratoga and Stevens Creek, I don't believe so.
Okay, yeah, it's a big opportunity there.
Yeah, feel free to check the map too, or reach out to me if you have questions about that. But right now, I think we're pretty much development-wise. We have like a slight uptick in our preliminary review applications, so people who are interested in development, but we don't have any like massive increase in our overall projects.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
There's Carlin here.
Go ahead,
Is the
Carmen.
Fort Bay project going to keep the Paseo?
Yeah, they will be keeping the Paseo. That was
Cool.
Vice Mayor was really on top of that. He wanted to make sure that was maintained. Yeah.
Good.
And also the Pulte development project. I know Daphna and others are on that are familiar with it. But that they have started some construction for the replacement housing, which is the Winchester Ranch Pulte development. So they're underway as well. So things are kind of moving along with some of these bigger ones, but yeah.
Is there
I
any,
just want to one last point on that, Bob, too, is that I set a goal to have 1,000 affordable housing units in the pipeline by the time I'm termed out of office, which is 1 year, 6 months, and 16 days. So we're almost halfway there. So we have a big push to try to identify opportunities to get more affordable housing, for our teachers and firemen and my barista at Starbucks to be able to live nearby.
is there any plan for the Lawrence Expressway and was that Campbell Avenue Prospect corner where Osh used to be? There's a whole bunch of empty stores in there now. There's Goodwill over there, but is there anything planned for that?
I haven't heard anything specific. I know there's been a couple of like rumors or proposals that were floating around from time to time, but I have not seen a specific proposal come forward.
Yeah, and I have talked with the developer or the landowner for that property, and they were waiting for a couple leases to expire, and then they were kind of going to run through some options. So nothing official yet, but they're ultimately planning to redevelop the site eventually.
It'd be a great place for housing since it's right near stores and bus stops, and I don't know how you feel about that, but
Yeah.
the developer anyway. Planning, but
Yeah, we need that urban village plan up there before we got all this piecemeal development.
Yeah. You know, I just got to get myself mentally geared up for another one of those. Wow.
Yeah, and we do have the El Paseo Urban Village and the De Anza Urban Village that we've applied for grants for. So those should both be underway in the coming months. But I'm sure Michael Brio can talk more about it if we have further questions. But that's kind of where we're at with the process for those.
Any other questions? Trying to pan through, see if anybody's raising their hand. If not, as was mentioned, you know, make sure that you read our newsletter. Reach out to me if you want me to ride my bike over to your neighborhood and have a community meeting on a corner. I'm willing and able to do it. So if there's no other questions, Ken, I'll send it back over to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Cassidy and everyone else who contributed there. So you know what, I jumped over Gary, and then Daphna also wants to add something as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I don't really need to share my screen, so I won't. So Gary, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, so tell us about the neighborhood commission.
What I wanted to touch on, and Chappie stole all my thunder, but that's okay, was on the recycling contamination. There was a really good presentation made to the neighborhood commission, and we were in the process of doing a work plan, and one of the council members was there at our meeting for District 10, and he was favorable to this presentation as well. But there was a big presentation made to the city council on it. Basically, we got 40 to 60% of contamination in the recycle bins. And because of the recycled market now, they're very, very, very selective as far as contamination and all that. And so we're just getting the stuff going to the landfills. And it does affect the price of our garbage rates. I think it's what came out in the presentation was if we became more aware as a community of the sorting, and it's not that horrendous. It's a doable thing. I think an outreach to the community would probably work on this. I pitched this when we were doing our work plan at the neighborhood commission, but we didn't get enough support on there. We got we're limited to the number of items we can put in our work plan, but I think it would be good for the people that made the pitch to the neighborhood commission, maybe to come out and do a presentation at D1LG, one of our meetings. They got a good presentation. There's a lot of material out there, and I think it's a doable issue. The other thing I just wanted to touch on briefly was that, and unfortunately, I guess the captain has left, is the porch piracy and break-ins and all that. But in the Midi High, John Mize Park area, the development over there at Strawberry Square, mail truck was broken into. Now this was broken into, the lock was punched out on the vehicle, and considerable mail was stolen. We're kind of aware of that because the association, they made a big mailing, and we're gonna have to remail that mailing because it was an official mailing, had to go through the postal service to be delivered. But that's kind of an escalation. That's not just mere running up to a door and grabbing something. That was, the lock was punched out and they went in there, and I don't know if they're going after stimulus checks or, I don't know what they're doing, but I spoke to the postmaster, the supervisor there at the post office at Payne. And I was just wondering how much they had escalated that up, because that's a federal offense. And they said, it's throughout the city. It's not just here, D1, but that's pretty serious. That shows a little bit of, I think, thought or something to punch out a lock and, break into a locked door. So, but that's just the way things are going now. But that's fairly serious. And a lot of people get their meds and everything through the mail. So, and we lost, and then of course that was Mother's Day weekend. So a lot of maybe Mother's Day cards and stuff like that, personal communications within families was lost too. So, it's just, I think that touched a lot of people. Anyway, that's all I had, Ken. But anyway, I would like to, like I said, I think that's a good issue on the recycled contamination to have the D1 possibly consider for presentation.
That's great. If you could send us the contact information, that'd be great, Gary.
Sure.
So just a quick comment on that, Ken, if I can inject. On that recycling, I wonder if it would be possible to tie some of that 17% increase to our contamination level. So if we get that contamination level down, can we get back some of that increase?
Yeah, they have considerable data, Steve. Good question. They have the presentation I saw, and then the material that was available that was presented to the city council. It's hundreds of papers. They did detailed studies of actual contents of cans and stuff like that. But yes, they can equate the amount of recycling and what the effect is on the rate. And there's a lot of issues, like I said, the fact that the people that purchase recyclable material have really set the standards high because of the declining market for recycling material. So there is a direct correlation, and Steve, there is good data there, and we can, when we go out and reach out to these people, we can ask specifically if that's an interest to you to focus in on that. That'd be good discussion point.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Daphna, tell us about parks.
Thank you. I wanted to just touch on a couple of areas. One, and Bob, who preceded me on the Parks Commission, will be happy to hear that the PDO-PIO process, which is actually the process by which parks, money, land, and parks come together through development money. Is really being looked at. Council directed them to relook at that process, which really, it comes from the state, but ultimately council has to make it work for our city. And I was really happy to hear, Chappie, that we're also looking at commercial developments that that possibly could be put into that process, because as we know, people in buildings use parks too. So I'm hoping that as that unfolds and that study unfolds, that some of that will change. I know Bob was clapping. Been waiting for that forever. So I'm hoping it's in its infancy right now, but we're watching it closely. And we've been working really closely also with the Google project as well. Just so you know, and it part of that, part of how much parkland we're actually getting out of that, or how little from my perspective has to do with that process and those ordinances. So that's our big focus right now. And I'm just happy that we've got 2 parks, not coming online right now, but in the next few years, and good for Chappie to be here at a time when we're finally getting new parks after not having any for about 50 years. So it's really exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Daphna. And now I'm going to try to share my screen. Celeste with State Senator Cortese's office is here.
Morning, everyone.
Morning. All right, now, oh, there you go. I just was sharing that cool screen, but I'll take it off now and put you back on.
Oh, well, the senator should be with us in just a few minutes. I sent you a message. He's gonna be here at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Well, then maybe what we'll do, let's go on to the next let's see, let's go on to the next topic. Sugata Pamida, and I hope I probably didn't
It's
pronounce
Sujata.
Sujata Pamida?
Sujata Pamidi.
Okay.
But you can call me Sue if that makes it any easier.
Sue? Okay. So you're going to talk to us a little bit about some thoughts you've had on exterior lighting. So I'll just go ahead and advance the slide and tell us where do you live?
Yeah. So hi, everybody. So I live in West San Jose, and I've lived in my current house for about 16 years. And my neighbor moved in about maybe 10 years ago, and we've had a great relationship until he installed a bright light exactly like it is in this graphic. And I'm sure he was just centering it to his wall, and I'm sure he didn't think about this, but right opposite my bedroom window. And because I have one of those honeycomb blinds, which works perfectly, right, for indirect light during the day, it kind of comes through, and it's very disruptive to me. So I did talk to him about it, and it didn't go well. I mean, even though, you know, it was a polite request on my part, he was very angry about what he thought. He said I was trying to control him. And so the end result was he just stopped talking to me. So I said, surely there has to be an ordinance that's going to protect people like me. You know, I can show it to him. So I started to look, and I didn't see anything. San Jose did not have, does not have an exterior light ordinance. And so, you know, what do? You can't go to a lawyer. You know, it's horribly expensive, not worth it. So I thought I started to research ordinances, and my research showed that pretty much all our neighboring cities, even though they're much smaller, they all have an ordinance in place to prevent a situation like this. And of course, you know, San Jose, so Campbell has it, Los Gatos, Saratoga, Cupertino. So these are just, you know, the relevant excerpts that I collected from my Google search. And with Cupertino, this is a relatively new ordinance. I think it's finalized now, and if it is not yet implemented, it will be soon. I talked to the gentleman who was the planner who came up with the report, and they have this dark skies initiative going on to protect wildlife and all of that. And this is part of it, also to protect neighborhoods. So I feel like this is, you know, San Jose being the largest city, ought to have already had this ordinance in place, but never mind, you know, we can still catch up. And I think it's an essential ordinance. It's not a nice to have. And so many of our neighboring cities already have it. So, you know, that speaks for itself. And there are alternatives. You know, you can still light up your property to feel secure without having to disturb your neighbors. And a lot of the other, you know, the ordinances, you could study that and you'd see, and we could implement something similar. So I'm hoping that I have your support on this. And I know that you have more important issues like homelessness and affordable housing, but this is something that goes with it because, you know, as we get more crowded, and now that granny units are allowed in small lots, I believe it's allowed in even a 5,000 square feet lot, if I remember right. And when you have such a crowded environment, then light ordinances and noise ordinances are very important to, you know, make sure that our quality of life doesn't go down the tubes. So, so I'm hoping that we can move this forward, that Vice Mayor Jones will take an active interest in making sure that this ordinance is passed in San Jose.
So they can contact you at fight.light.trespass@gmail.com. I put it in the chat menu.
Yeah.
And we probably have one question, or time for one question. I noticed Amy has her hand up, so if you can unmute.
Hey, I'm sorry, Amy and Ken, can I just
Sure.
real quick before we go into questions? So Sue reached out to our office and we told her that,
That's right.
it would be very challenging if I just introduced a potential ordinance to the council without like any groundswell of community support or community, communication to the other council members. Because I can guarantee you that, as Sue mentioned, with all the other demands on our city staff and resource constraints, that if it's just my introducing that as an ordinance, that it wouldn't go very far. So it's one of those situations where the community has to come together and put pressure on the whole city to move something like this forward. So I just wanted to give you that context.
So, I mean, how would we do that? Would that be that we reach out to neighborhood associations in all the other districts?
Yes.
And then have it, I mean, does this go on a ballot? Or, I mean, I don't know what the process would be, but it just seems to me that just as we have an ordinance saying, hey, you can't be nude in public, you can't pee in public areas. I mean, this to me, I equate this to be like, it's a common sense ordinance that just says, hey, don't shine a light on your neighbor's face at night, when they're in bed. It's just a common sense ordinance, I think. I don't know how hard it was to pass this in other cities. I would imagine not. So I don't know who would object to this, frankly, because I think it's in everybody's interest.
So we have quite a few questions. Amy, why don't you go real quick? These have to be really quick because.
Thank you for bringing up this issue. I was wondering your thoughts about motion sensor lights. I also wanted to bring up that at our upcoming May meeting, we're going to have the San Jose crime prevention specialist talking a lot about adding more lighting to our homes because home security is a big issue in our neighborhood. And we're always told that lights is the way to go. And I'm interested in learning about the ordinances from the other cities. So if there's a way that you can, I don't know, make that, if you can link in the chat or something.
Yeah, in the chat, I have her email. So that I suggest some of these, that we take that offline. It's great questions and contact her at thefight.light.trespass@gmail. I think Bob was next.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Sue, for this presentation. I just want to say I'm fully in accord with what you're saying and full agreement. My wife and I go for walks at night, and having a glaring light suddenly blind you is really challenging. It's very uncomfortable, and so I would love to see some type of ordinance. I think I saw it quickly in the one that says to keep the lighting on your property.
Yeah. So one of the things I must say is right now I'm kind of more focused on disturbing your neighbors when they're asleep. Not so much on, say, motions. I have a motion sensor light, in front of my garage, and also in the side yard, of course, because I live in Westmont, and it's a fairly busy street. So anything that if there's a car that drives by, it comes on, But on the side, in the side corridors, right, I would say the side yards, opposite window, if bedroom window, if you put a motion sensor light, that would actually be worse because the light would keep coming on and off every time a cat walks by on the fence. And that would actually be worse than having a light on all night. But I feel like if you had
okay, so yeah, why don't we kind of stop the discussion, because I'm afraid we're going to eat into the rest of the time for opportunity housing. Right. But Steve as secretary and Doris, do you guys have any final comments so we can move to the next topic?
I have a street light that they've changed out, and it's super, super bright. My bedroom is on the front, and I bought a room darkening shade, and it solves the problem. So until you get this implemented, I would suggest you do the same.
That's all well and good, but this, of course, your bedroom is in the front, mine is on the side, and I kind of feel like sure, we could change our blinds, but that brings its own problems. Like if you had a dark blind, when you open it in the morning, you have direct sunlight coming in. That can be hot and uncomfortable. If you close it, it becomes completely dark and the room becomes too dark. So there are reasons why I didn't do that. And I kind of feel like if you have your window there and somebody suddenly comes and installs a light opposite it, it's up to them. It's their responsibility to make sure that they're not disturbing the neighbor.
Okay, so let's again, please contact Sujata. I'm messing your name up.
Sujata, no, that's fine, yeah.
Sujata to follow up with her, because it's going to take a big effort. So why don't we move to opportunity housing? Michael, are you there? I saw you on the chat menu. Yep, I see Michael and Jared. So I'm going to set things up a little bit. We have some kind of pre-questions, and just to kind of get things going, and then we'll open it up to questions. But I spent way too much time looking at this. We're really going to focus on San Jose, not some of these other bills that are out there right now. SB 6, SB 9, SB 10. And this was from the last meeting. They probably changed, the details have changed. So I don't want to focus on those. We want to focus on opportunity housing, but some of those things could affect the discussion today. From the website, opportunity housing is part of the solution to the severe housing shortage and to establish a transition area between urban boundaries and surrounding residential neighborhoods. The City Council directed Planning Division staff to explore opportunity housing as part of the general plan for your review.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
We can hear you, Michael.
1, 2, 3. Sorry, my mic. Yeah, sorry, my mic, I guess it was not working and I fixed it. So we have a presentation on opportunity housing that's very brief. I don't know if you'd like us to run through that. And then
we can do that. You know what? Maybe we should table the discussion again for another 5 minutes or so. State Senator Cortese has just joined us.
Okay, just let us know if you want to run through, our presentation. It kind of covers it very briefly overall, so people have a good understanding of like what's on the table.
Yeah, we could do that. We'll do that. State Senator Cortese, welcome and thank you for coming. We've run over a little bit of time, so if you want to just give us maybe a 5-minute introduction, and maybe this could set up another meeting where maybe in our July picnic you could visit us or something in person.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Getting out and about a little bit more. Even the events that the few events that we're allowed to go to now are still extremely limited, compared to last year. I'm going down to the county for a cultural flag raising ceremony in a little while. And, it's sure to be a sparse crowd and distance just based on the rules that are still in effect, for some of those official events. But I look forward to getting together with you. I'll be brief, and I appreciate you, accommodating me. I didn't come in today or, drop in with a big agenda. Mainly my concern, to be very, very candid with you, is, I'm up in Sacramento now, Monday morning through Thursday evening, usually. Sometimes that spills over to Friday, for example, because of Memorial Day, because of an influx of legislation, bills that are coming through over the next few weeks. We are going to, be doing a lot of Friday sessions, and there'll be long sessions. So what does that have to do with coming to a meeting like this? It's just that, I have that sense, having been a local official and lived here all my life, that, I'm very much missing people, from right here in San Jose and Santa Clara County. And I mean that genuinely. You start to think, oh, it's kind of, for a lot of you, probably how the pandemic has felt the last year anyway, right? It's, man, I haven't seen that person in a long time. In my case, it's amplified even more because of this out-of-town duty that I have to do. So, we're trying to drop in whatever possible. Absolutely look forward to coming back in July. We're supposed to be recessed in July if we get the budget adopted on time, and I think we will, given the state of affairs this year. In that vein, I'm not going to, in the couple minutes that I have left, talk about, COVID at length. I think the information about that is out there. What I would say to you is that the state of the state is in extremely good condition from a fiscal standpoint, thanks to all of you, and frankly, thanks to the most affluent, or what we would call the highest income folks in income tax brackets, the top 50% of the taxpayers, based on our progressive system, where you pay more, given the level of income that you have. So between capital gains and other forms of income taxes coming out of the tech sector and everything else, the state, instead of having a huge deficit, ended up with a huge excess or surplus, if you will. Some of that is going to have to go to restore cuts that were made last year before I got there, because people were being prudent last year and saying, hey, we better cut, right? This pandemic is going to shut down the tax revenue, because it's shutting down a lot of businesses and employment and so forth. I tend to credit all of you and my neighbors and the people in the state of California for working so hard and staying focused during this pandemic. I think there's besides staying healthy and alive, I think the other thing that we heard most from constituents, including when I was a county supervisor, is, we do not want this economy to collapse. We want the opportunity to keep working, to keep running our businesses. And I really do think that tone throughout the state of California has helped us be in a really good situation now. Of that big surplus, if you will, about $30 billion is going to go to our schools, public schools. So if that's one of your priorities, it's certainly one of mine. Just know that's happening, and there'll be a lot of other extra services going to the schools over and above that 30 billion, including mental health services and other kinds of county behavioral services to help support our students and their families. So without getting into the whole budget, I just want to give you that example and a couple of facts and figures, so you know that that is not an issue. I want to come back and talk to you. This is my last comment at some point, or I'm available to answer questions. If any of you just want to check in by email, you can go to our website on the state Senate website. You can just Google that up, or just Google, Dave Cortese, state senator. And you can also, send a message in that way to get an answer to a question. I know there's some concerns about housing and housing density, and how much the state will or will not do in terms of interfering with local cities and counties with regard to how they approve new housing in our neighborhoods. I think if you have concerns about that, I just want you to know that the state has taken a position in the state Senate that local control over zoning needs to prevail, no matter how streamlined the state Senate or the state legislature as a whole, including the assembly, no matter how streamlined we try to make it for people to add accessory dwelling units or, put a duplex in their neighborhood, it's still going to be up to the local zoning officials in each city to make the decision as to whether that's allowed or not. So you'll still be able to, have your input at City Hall, just like I will as a member of this community. The state's not doing anything to change that. I know there's a lot of rumors out there about bills that are pending, but I want to give you my personal and professional assurances that, it's being handled in that way. So with that, I'll conclude, Ken, and thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes to drop in and try to stay connected to, all of you. And again, I'll look forward to, mingling in July.
Thank you very much, State Senator. And given our time constraints, I think we should hold off on Q&A, and we welcome you to stay for the opportunity housing discussion, because I think that'll be very spirited and there's a lot to learn there.